Welcome to the TechnoGals podcast, a podcast where two gals talk about technology and whatever else is top of mind. Let's get started. So, Alicia, this is our first episode. So we wanted to talk a little bit about just kind of who we are, how we met, and what we hope to get out of the podcast. So we'll just kind of like open it up. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Alicia Retzlaff, and I've been working in the technology field for, maybe like 10 plus years, maybe 12 plus years. Entered into it leaving education and research. I decided I wanted to be on the tech side, so moved over to a company and started as like a technical project manager, helping companies redesign their websites. And since then, kind of had a really interesting career. I think we all probably have interesting technology careers that have taken pivots or paths that we maybe weren't necessarily expecting from the first when you enter into it. So I met you at our most recent company, and it was just a really interesting because you were helping someone mentor that was brand new into the role, and we had not even like 2 minutes of connection or time talking to each other, but I was like, I want to meet this person. I want to spend some time with her. Like just instant vibe, like just knew we were going to be like get along and just kind of have a really similar sentiment about getting work done and how we like approach problems. So, and my gut was right, which is great. And we've been hanging out and chilling and talking about stuff ever since. So this idea was really kind of your idea, where we were just spitballing on some things, and you were like, what about this? And I was like, yeah, I would do that with you. But for me, what I hope to gain out of this is that we create a community. Especially like you and I talk about this as women in tech, we still see a giant disparity between the amount of women and men representation in the field. And so would like to create a community where women or anyone, this is not designed just for women, but to really create a community that fosters openness, sharing, vulnerability, a space to share people's experiences and how they're handling it, or even to create a sense of universality that this is not just affecting me, other people are experiencing this too, and I have a community that I can lean on and learn from.
Yeah. Well, also, this is probably a little bit of a squirrel, but the first time I met you, you had purple hair.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but like I live in a state that has all four seasons. And during the winter months, I'm a huge outdoors person, especially like hot months. And once it's winter, I don't go outside nearly as much. And so I kind of wanted to change up my environment and see myself a little bit differently when I look in the mirror, just to give my brain a little bit of little stimuli change compared to like what I normally see. So yeah, right after that on that webcam specifically, the hair looked so purple. I was like, oh my goodness. But I never dye my hair. I just use this semi-permanent stuff that kind of washes out. So thankfully, after a few washes, it dyed a little bit. I'll have to share the picture with the community. But yeah, I shouldn't say it dyed, like it just faded. And then I was happy with it, but it was really purple.
Like insert like pop up picture of Alicia with purple hair.
Yeah, it was quite purple. I have some pictures of it that I'll share, but I remember that call and I was like, oh my gosh, on webcam this looks really purple and I've never met these people and this is a little bit aggressive.
No, it was awesome.
I was just trying to bring some happiness to my brain in winter months.
It worked.
Yeah.
So where are you based out of?
So I live in Nebraska. Yeah, I live in Nebraska. So I think that's also a really interesting thing because we're both Midwest gals. And we see a lot of women, I think, from the coast and entering into the tech field. But from Midwest perspective, it still seems like, from what I see, we're still really underrepresented in the space. So I really love that we're both even Midwest gals working in a tech space and kind of kicking ass along the way.
Nerds rule the world, for sure. Maybe I could talk a little bit just about my background, but it just made me think about like coming from the Midwest. People will think we will have accents, I think. Like, have you ever been on a call and someone's like, wow, you have a pretty strong accent? Like, I don't think you have one.
No, I don't think so.
But like, you're talking about like the coasters, right? No one's ever said that?
No one's ever thought I've had an accent. Well, so I used to work with a lot of folks from England as well as Canada. And just because I worked with them so much, I picked up that long O. And so sometimes it'd be like, oh, I need to go out and post this. And I say the really long
Post.
O. And so people always think I'm Northern, but I've never lived there. I've lived in Nebraska and Missouri my whole life. But I just, from working in a global company, you pick up little random phrases from folks. And it just kind of stuck.
That's hilarious because I thought, and maybe this I should know this because we're friends and I need to know more about you, but I thought that you had at some point lived in like Wisconsin or Minnesota because you say like like those colloquialisms.
Yeah, for sure. You got
or
the
phrases.
Right.
Okay, I'm like, oh gosh, here we go.
Yeah, no, I get that all the time.
People told me that I have an accent, like I sound like I'm from like maybe Texas. Like I have
really?
a drawl. Yeah. A lot of
I
times.
guess I can hear that a little bit now that you pointed out, like you do have a slight twang, but I don't think I would notice it unless you mentioned it.
But so I was watching this, I know we're like going off topic for just a second and we'll like bring it back in, but
Yeah.
I'm studying for a certification. You and I have talked about this and going through the A Cloud Guru website, and this guy that's doing the training, he has like this really thick Southern drawl. And I just remember thinking like, no one, like you don't hear that a lot in tech. You don't hear, and I'm not saying this to be like in a negative way, but like that hillbilly kind of like redneck thick accent in technology just is not there. So anyways, okay, my rant's over.
Like I don't hear that one very often.
No. Well, so my name's Tracy Gorman. I'm from Kansas, born and raised. I live in Wichita. Prior to that, I grew up in a really teeny tiny town called Mount Hope. It's like population 600 people, just like out in the middle of nowhere. A lot of my family still lives there. What else? I'm married. I got 2 bonus daughters, one in heaven, one lives here in Wichita with her husband, and 2 kids. So actually, I'm a grandma. I know, jealous.
I love that.
I got 2 huskies. They'll probably like be barging in here. Actually, could be any time now because they're usually hungry. But I guess just how I got into tech. So a long time ago, I actually wanted to be a doctor. So I was majoring in pre-med, going to school full-time and working as an EMT in the ER. That was a lot of fun. But then I had to have knee surgery and I wasn't being released to go back to work. I had bills to pay, a mortgage due. And I had a friend that worked at Koch Industries, and she worked in the tech side, and she kind of mentioned, you're kind of a nerd. You should maybe think about doing this, and it pays way better. And I'm like, okay, I guess. And that was back in, I don't know, like 10, 12, 13 years ago. And I applied at Koch, and I worked on the service desk, taking, computer troubleshooting calls. Please reboot and see if that works. And that was a lot of fun, learned a lot, but I just never went back to the medical field. So started out on the service desk, then moved into a variety of different more technical roles, and then eventually got into leadership and got to work moving applications to the cloud, and then you got to experience, the whole cloud boom, and then now I'm at AWS working with you. So it's been quite the experience, but life definitely, like, who would have thought? Were you ever thinking that you would end up in tech? Like, was that like your end goal? Like, this is...
I mean, I don't think so. And now, like, hindsight's always 2020. And when you're picking like your career or what you think you want to do, and I'm kind of similar to you. I had 2 options when I was looking at college, or I wanted to be a chemist. I loved chemistry. I thought it was amazing. I loved biology. So I really wanted to go into a deep science space. But I did maybe in high school they have you do those informational interviews with folks.
Yeah.
And I met with one, and they were like, hey, if you go this route, like, you're going to be I don't want to say just, your options are limited. You're going to be a pharmacist. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know anything. I'm 16, 17, 18, somewhere in that area. And I was like, well, that sounds not what I want. I don't want to be in a box.
Yeah.
So I went for a more general like business admin and communication degree where I thought it would be more applicable in several different areas. But now that I look back on it, I just don't think it was like the best advice, because as a person that's been in the industry for longer now, I see chemistry and pharmacy positions that I think aren't just, working at a pharmacy and giving someone their prescription. There's way more applications, and I just didn't know that. So the path I ended up taking, I think, was somewhat because I just was intimidated by this interview that I had and got maybe something I didn't really like as a feedback. And so I was like, well, that's not going to be great. And then it ended up in business for a long time, and then wanted to really help people out. Went through education and teaching folks at the college level, and was really inspired by that. But there's a lot of red tape on the university side, and feels slow because you just can't, everything's committee and budgets. And because of that, I felt like I wanted to go somewhere that was faster and quicker paced. And then I went to the tech side, and that's definitely fast and quick paced.
Yeah, never ending. So then what was your degree in then when you finished college?
So my degree is in Bachelor of Arts in Business, and then I also have a minor in Communication, and then I have my master's as well in Arts and Management. So I have a few degrees.
Smarty pants.
I don't know about that. You just put the effort in and, do the assignments.
What's funny is, I never finished, so I do not have a degree. Maybe that's it'd be good to just compare, looking back now, would we have done anything different? But you mentioned you loved the sciencey part of the chemistry and biology. And when I was in school, I loved all the hands-on type things, especially working in the ER. You got to see some really cool stuff and get to save lives. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. But as far as being a student, I was horrible at biology.
Really?
Chemistry, all of it. Yeah. So
even in high school?
Looking back, oh yeah. I'm not
Really?
I'm not a very good student.
That's right.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's probably one of our bigger differences. I remember in biology in high school, I even got the teacher gave out awards at the end of the year, and I got the Busy Bee award because as soon as I was done, I would go to the kid next to me and be like, "Do you understand it? Do you want me to show you how to do it?" And it would end up being a little mini teacher. I definitely see that. Yeah, and then I'd go to the next group. And
teacher's aide.
I just bumblebeed around to everyone. Do you understand? Do you need help with dissecting that fetal pig? I can help you with that.
Literally. So then I would be like, yes, I need help. Please help me.
I was like, here's the heart, here's the kidney.
Oh, that's funny. Well, maybe we can talk a little bit more about just what's the structure of this podcast and kind of what can we hope to see going forward. I can maybe take a stab at it, but you feel free to chime in or tell me I'm completely wrong in some of these areas.
So I think before we move on, I'd like to kind of post a question out there to anyone that's watching this and see if we can get some engagement and interaction, because so many times, excuse me, I feel like people don't end in their career what their degree is in or what they originally thought it was going to be. So I'm kind of curious, how many other people out there either 100% knew what they were going to do when they went to college, and yes, their career matches what their degree is or what they studied, or no, I studied literature and here I am in this, or whatever it may be. So would love to hear from anyone that's kind of listening on if their college or even pre-college years match where they are now as far as what they're doing and how they're supporting the industry.
I wonder what statistics there are on that, because I think you're right. I would guess probably the majority of people don't, you said, you think you're going into one field, but end up because of a myriad of different reasons you land somewhere else. What's the statistics behind? I wanted to be a pharmacist, and now I'm a pharmacist vet of 30 years and retired from that career.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure we can finally maybe find something out there, but it is a really tough decision because we're asking people to pick their forever jobs, right? When they're 18 or younger, and it's kind of you don't quite know because you don't have enough experience to even be able to pick. You don't know even what's available, really.
Especially if you're willing to go the traditional route through college and invest thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to do that. maybe another interesting question is people that were so committed to it, even though they knew that, oh, maybe this isn't what I want to do. Like, how did you handle that? You're like
Yeah.
3 years in, you decide this sucks. I don't want to do it. What did you do?
Yeah.
You just like grind it out, or
you just pot committed at that point in time, or do you just completely pivot and understand that that investment was, I guess, an investment to knowing what you do or don't want to do? That's helpful to know, but it's an expensive investment either way.
Yeah. Good call.
Yeah, I'd love to hear you take a stab at what our content's going to be and the structure of the podcast.
Yeah, so here's kind of what I'm thinking, and you and I have obviously talked about this, but we're obviously both tech nerds. We get to see a lot of really cool stuff working at AWS and working with, a bunch of different customers, and maybe we can talk a little bit about what we do at AWS just to give some people some context of our current kind of responsibility and roles. But given that context, I think what we would like to see is just a really open space to talk about anything technology, but then also the nuances that come with being a female in the tech industry. It's obviously a male-dominated industry. There's some really funny things that happen because of that. There's some more kind of serious things that come with that, and how you and I have been able to navigate it. And if we can share some of our experiences in that space, that may help or provide some weird insight for someone else, I think that would be really awesome. But then also just life in general. I think there's a lot of just really cool things out there, and I don't want to put us in this box of, we're just gonna like talk about technology for like the next 30 minutes. I think that's part of our squirrel behavior, which we saw a little bit of how we finally got to the end of why we're doing this podcast. And then I guess one more thing I'd say is that with the kind of caveat of having this, what does being a female in the tech industry look like? Disclaimer, that doesn't mean we're here to like shame men and we hate men. I'm married to one, so I'm a fan. I like them. They're cool. But this isn't like you guys suck.
Yeah, for sure.
It's more about like highlighting, I think, just our experiences, and if that can be helpful to someone else, or if it can even provide a safe space for someone else to be vulnerable and share some of those experiences, I think that'd be really awesome. I don't know. Yeah. What do you think?
Very similar. I think that technology is huge, and it's changing quicker than I can even keep up with it. And we're exposed to a lot of different types of technology. So I would say like we're mostly tech generalist. We're not super deep in one domain or databases or Gen AI. We know a little bit about all of it. And so how can we make technology more digestible, or more like not as intimidating to anyone that's new to it?
Yeah.
But also, if you are already in the tech field, can we share something about it that's interesting or that we're seeing as trends that might be applicable or insightful to someone else? But I agree with you, like definitely not just tech focused, because there's a lot of things that women working manage. And that doesn't necessarily mean even just in the workforce, but just in general. And how can we bring together a community of people to support and provide insights on how to be successful in those spaces? And just like simple things, like you and I have chatted about this, and I think it'll be part of our a deeper dive conversation later, but wearing makeup, because people will ask us, are you sick? Like when we don't wear makeup. And I'm like, no, it's just my normal skin tone. Like it just looks like this. Like so like, other people have to be able to relate to that. Like we can't be alone in this, that we look sick if we're not wearing makeup.
Right. And then also like exploring what's like the male equivalent of that. Like what is that thing that like, I don't know, is there something else out there that we have this like weird perception of that, maybe someone else doesn't, but.
Yeah. And you and I have both agreed that, or mentioned that we lean towards more identifying as like introverts. Or introverted extroverts. And so how do we be successful when part of our role is to speak up, especially as leaders, and we have teams that we represent? So how do we, even despite being more inclusive or introverted in nature, how are we finding the ability to be successful in speaking up in spaces that maybe we're not always heard or we have to if we need to. So I think it's going to be a blend of, I'm hoping long term we have a blend of the tech side, but then also just the general commonalities that we all experience in the workplace.
Yeah, 100%.
And maybe some laughs along the way. I'd like to giggle every once in a while.
Giggle? There it is.
Or laugh, whatever.
I think, I know what I was going to say is I think people will be like, oh, you guys are introverts, but you're doing this podcast. I think one thing that we are trying to do is stretch ourselves
for sure.
to be like more vulnerable and to flex that muscle of feeling comfortable in our own skin, of talking about things where, we might not be like this just deep ingrained expert on, but we can have an intelligent conversation and provide meaningful insight. So I think part of that is like getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. Like, I got a little bit of the icks right now. I'm nervous, but I'm really, really excited. So,
yeah.
Okay.
I think we've chatted about some of our goals for 2024, and I'm thinking that will also be another one of our topics as we make more of these episodes, is just goal setting and how do we make them achievable and attainable. And like you mentioned, we're both sitting for a certification here in the near future. So what is our study plan to be successful with that and so forth? But one of mine is guest speaking events or just speaking events in general. It's really, I love that people have that just down and it's easy for them and they just got it. But for me, I have to be very intentional. I have to put a lot of prep and practice into like, what am I going to say? And then the whole time I'm still nervous. Like, what if someone asks me a question that stumps me or that I don't know how to answer or I don't have experience with? And that's why I kind of have to decide that like the first part of my guest speaking, I should just be like, I'm not going to be an expert. Like, I know enough and I know a decent amount of stuff, but I'm never going to know everything. And I have to be comfortable admitting my own like deficiencies in that knowledge or in that space.
Yep. 100%. I like public speaking. I feel very similar. My heart rate is all jacked up.
Yep.
I start to get sweaty. Like right now, I'm nervous right now. My heart rate is up there and I may or may not be a little sweaty, but
yeah.
No one will know because this is just on video, so it's fine.
That's great. This is the best part of it. But no, I spent a lot of time prepping for anything that's guest speaking, and it's still like moments before, like I know it's my turn to talk. I still have those like, I'm like, you can do it. It's fine. Yeah. So I'm hoping that it's. I think anything where you're sharing an opinion. Which a lot of this is like we're talking about what we're experiencing. It is our opinions on it, but even how we solve it is going to be how we chose to solve it or how we went about it. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only way or that was the right way. And so even, I'm expecting people are going to be like, that's a terrible idea. Why'd you guys do that? And be like, well, with the resources I had available, this is what I thought was the best thing at the time.
Right. But then how would you do it? What would have been a better way, and how can we have some meaningful conversation around that too?
Yeah.
We're here to learn just as much.
We can create a small community of folks that support, challenge, inspire. That would be a successful outcome for me.
Yep. +1.
Gotta get the emojis going.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking about like all like the little inserts that we can have popping up in here. So if you didn't have anything else, I was going to close it out with a quick question to you, and then we'll call it a wrap.
Oh, I don't have anything else.
We are recording our very first podcast or episode on New Year's Day. And with that, right, like New Year's resolutions, like, are you a resolutioner? Like, do you participate in yearly goal setting and aspirations for what you hope to get done for 2024?
I do, but I'm not like, what is a resolution? Like, is a resolution like, so I'm always a goal setter because that at least gives me something to kind of work towards, and then also like break it down into little mini milestones to see if I'm on track or off track. But there's lots of times I set goals and I'm just like, hey, this isn't going to work for this year, and I have to completely sidebar it into like another year. We were doing this massive renovation on this house. It was almost like gutted down to studs. And so I had a lot of goals for 2023 that ended up getting postponed. We'll say that, postponed. Because the renovation just took longer, took more time, all those things. And it's like, want to ever set a goal for myself and then feel bad that like life happened and you
Right.
have to kind of adjust and pivot. So what does a resolution mean though exactly? Like
I don't know. I think that's the thing. It can be anything. It can just be whatever definition that you make it.
I just don't
Doesn't
know
have
if a
to be
resolution means like I
prescriptive.
want to change this about myself or I want to do this, or is it like goals where I have like, oh, I'm going to try and do this. That's why I asked. So I'm not like a
Maybe
resolution
both.
place where I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym more often or something like that. Like that
Yeah.
isn't going to be like a resolution I have, but I do set goals annually and then
Yeah.
kind of check in on them and see how they're going quarterly and what needs to be is going well or what is not going well and kind of readjust to the life of where I'm at to. I have two kiddos. They're 13 and 10. I have two boys. So even if I set goals at the beginning of the year, it's just sometimes like you're like, oh, that didn't go very well. And I'm really
Life.
busy raising some people. So that's okay too.
Taking care of humans, that's kind
Yeah.
of a big deal. It's kind of
Yeah,
a big
so-
responsibility.
In my mind, I have my high level goals, which is a couple of speaking events to get more comfortable with it and to get a place where it feels more organic and natural for me than like this. I have to really prep myself up for it or ramp
Yeah.
myself up for it. And then I want to pass the certification that we're studying for. So that's another big
Yep.
one that's top of mind for me.
Machine
I'm
learning. If anyone wants to
Yes.
join in AWS machine learning, it's a little bit of a beast.
I think you're further along in studying than I am because life.
Uh,
Maybe I should stop giving myself so much grace and being like, life happened.
No.
Life happened.
at least you have goals. I'm
Yeah.
thinking like that's actually kind of a good idea. Like I've never really like sat down and done that. You know,
Yeah.
you think into the future of there's some things you want to get accomplished, but I've never been intentional about no, like specifically in 2024, whatever the time box is, like what are those things and am I actually trying to hold myself accountable or am I just saying that would be cool to do? Because two different things.
Yes. I would say like the other one that I am trying to make a very consistent goal is before COVID. I shouldn't say before because COVID's still a thing, still around, but before 2020, I was really avid going to the gym, doing like really aggressive boot camps, and then the gym's closed, everything, life kind of happened. You had kids at home you were trying to do homeschooling with to finish out
yeah.
the year. There was a lot of uncertainty with like health and so forth, and I got really far out of the habit of being habitual in going to the gym, and I've just started to get back into it. But my goal for 2024 is to avoid the excuses not to go. So it's easy to be like, oh, I'm really busy today, or this meeting ran long, so now I don't have time to gym. But like really making it a priority to invest that time into my health
Yeah.
because I think it's important, and that should be an important thing compared to working through lunch or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Well, you did it today. And
did,
you,
yeah.
like, I texted you, hey, you want to do this podcast? Like at one, you're like, no, I can't. I'm going to be at the gym. I'm like, you go, girl.
I'll be super sweaty.
Well, Matt.
We won't know if we're sweating because you're nervous
Right.
or if we're sweating because you finished your
Yeah.
workout.
Just don't raise your arms and it'll be fine. Just like arms and tight. But I think like for me, I've always thought like resolution was kind of not weird. I would never like shame anyone for having a New Year's resolution, but probably just because more times than not, it feels like this very superficial thing. Like, you know, like you said, January 1st, I'm going to start going to the gym. I'm going to start eating healthy and like all of these things. And then, you know, people do it. That's why you see all these gym memberships happen in January and then people kind of stop going February, March, or whatever it is. But I will say that this year, I don't have like a specific goal or anything, but it's been a rough couple of last years. And I'm really determined to just focus and do more of the things that I love and that I'm passionate about, which is why I'm so excited about this. Like, how cool is it? Jan 1, we're starting out like doing something that we're really excited about, and it doesn't feel like work. It's something that we're passionate and that we can share with other people. So I'm kind of just excited from that aspect, just to be more intentional about what what things make me happy and spend more time doing those things and less time doing the things that just like totally drain me. It's not worth it. So
100%.
I don't know.
That's also probably like a really great topic for another episode is like the obligation of like, or the discomfort in saying like no. I've gotten better about it, and I think sometimes I come across like rude to one of my friends if they're like, hey, do you want to come and do this? And I'm like, no. Like, it doesn't excite me. It's like I only get an hour or two to invest in something, and like that's not where I want to invest my time. So being super protective of your time and like investing in your happiness or what gives you your joy back. But I also feel like this guilt of saying no.
Yes.
And feel bad for saying no. Yeah. So like that's probably a whole nother topic would be really great to figure out. Why do we feel so bad, and how do you pro tips for not feeling bad.
Yeah, definitely add it to the list. There's a pretty lengthy rabbit hole we could go down in that space. Yeah. All right. Well, any like parting thoughts, words of wisdom?
I'm excited. I think it's
the last
we should maybe let everyone know that we're going to do like a 10 episode trial and get feedback from the community, see where we are, what's working, what feedback do y'all have, how can we build this and make it stronger and better. And so we'll kind of like redecide about the overall mission and final goal as we hear from the community. But ultimately, like, this is exciting.
Yeah, I'm pumped.
Yeah.
So I have in my notes, like looking at the camera here, then I have my notes on the left-hand side. And, we kind of ran through the agenda of everything we wanted to talk through. And then my last note is, how should we do the outro? And so I'll just read verbatim what I have because I just feel like it's so good. Well, I felt like that went pretty solid. How do we end it? Maybe we just say goodbye. Verbatim notes. Oh, and add cool outro music. So then that's